Harlem has been the spiritual home of Black America at least since the 1920s, in the era of the Harlem Renaissance. So many great artists have lived and worked here, from Ella Fitzgerald to Duke Ellington to Langston Hughes. Behind me, in fact, is the Teresa Hotel, one of the most famous landmarks in Harlem, where all of the swells and greats of Harlem stayed or hung out. Today's Harlem is a very different place. There's new residents, new development, so it's in a period of transition, but still it's a place of great pride for African Americans. And for me personally, I have a lot of personal history tied up on the streets of Harlem. This is Nelson George, BlackAtlas.com. Welcome to Harlem. Okay, I got a story to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, about the birth of hip-hop. About 30 years ago or so, I was a youngin'. I used to work at the Amsterdam News around the corner. I'm on 125th Street right here, not far from the Apollo. So a guy comes by with a boombox. Now, boomboxes were very typical, obviously, then, but I'd never heard someone, the guy was talking in rhyme over a beat. So I go, yo, 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 what's that, what's that? And the guy turns to me and goes, it's DJ Hollywood. And he just keeps on going. And DJ Hollywood is one of the pioneers of hip-hop rhyming, and my introduction to him came right on this patch of dirt back in 1977-78. The legendary Apollo Theater has been a part of the Harlem scene going back to the early part of the 20th century and continues to be a vital part of it into the 21st century. I first came here with my mother to see James Brown when I was like about 5 years old. We stood along this wall here next to the Apollo and stood in line to see the great James Brown perform. I've seen everyone from Black Ivory from the 70s to recently, I actually saw Bjork here. So it used to be a place just for black music and black culture, but obviously rock bands play here all the time. It's become a very hip venue for all kinds of music here in Harlem. One of my favorite spots in Harlem is the intersection of Frederick Douglass Boulevard and 125 Street. I have a lot of history here and so much to do. Behind me actually is Magic Johnson's Theater, which is a big economic plus for Harlem, and it was one of the things that really helped prevent the revival of the community. Right next to it, or underneath it actually, is Hue-Man Experience Bookstore, which is a great black-owned bookstore. Melvin Van Peebles has a piece of the bookstore. And so that's a spot where I've read many times, and it's become part of continuing the Harlem tradition, the Harlem culture. Behind me is the offices of the Amsterdam News, which is where I began my career as a journalist back 1977-78. I was in college, going to school here in New York City. My favorite memory is a guy named Les Matthews. He was Mr. 125 Street. And that meant he did a column about anything and everything that happened in Harlem. And it was always like a little ellipsis, dot, 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 between the items that were very short. My favorite one was Jimmy Jones makes his singing debut on 135th Street, comma, while his brother got iced on 125, dot, dot, dot. One of the great institutions of black cultural history in the country is the Schomburg Library. Arthur Schomburg started it back in the early part of the 20th century. I've written 20 books or whatever. I've researched damn near every one of them in here at some point or another. And everyone who's done anything about black culture in any kind of depth has probably been in the Schomburg Library. We're on 135th Street, near the corner of Lenox Avenue. This building here is the original Schomburg Library building that was founded in, that Arthur Schomburg began his collection. It became such an impressive part of really the literature and history of Black America. Another good example of Harlem past and present is the Harlem YMCA. It has been a place where artists and newcomers to Harlem have lived for decades. Langston Hughes lived there, Romeo Bearden, the great painter, lived there. So many people of the Harlem Renaissance and after the Harlem Renaissance came through that location. Today it's still a center where people go and take yoga classes, have community meetings. I think they've had screenings there. So the Harlem Y was and is a vital part of the Harlem community. It's a Sunday afternoon in Harlem. The 11 o'clock service from the Abyssinian Baptist Church is let out. The Abyssinian Baptist Church is one of the most famous churches in the country. It's located on 137th Street and Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard. And what's really interesting is we're just come out here after the 11 o'clock service, and I would say that that maybe the majority of the people coming out of the church are non-black. The Abyssinian has become both a symbol of power in Harlem and is a tourist attraction, which has been somewhat controversial. I am at Soma, which is an Ethiopian restaurant on 113th Street and Frederick Douglass Boulevard. I'm about to have a bite, some Ethiopian food with my friend Tigis Salam, who is an actress and a Harlem resident. How you doing?
How you doing, Nelson?
What do we have here?
So here we have the yellow one is actually misirwet, yeah.
And this?
This is a crushed beans.
And this is lamb.
And this is lamb.
Right.
And this is carrots and potato.
Now we're going to eat with our hands, correct?
I hope you wash your hands.
I just
yes.
washed my hands.
In Ethiopian tradition, what especially like with like friends or lovers, or even like between a mother and a daughter, the first bite we actually feed one another.
Okay.
So we call this in Amharic gursha, and what we do is like we'll give this. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, this is good. Harlem is a place in incredible transition. It's still and remains a center of black culture, but there are flavors from all over the world and all over the globe here now. This is Nelson George for BlackAtlas.com. Catch you in the air.